Well, welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you. Today we're going to make Fiesta fritters, or another nifty thing to do with leftovers. Here are your ingredients. Pause, write them down, and let's get cooking. Well, I have here some leftovers. I have some red beans. We just didn't quite finish. This is about half a cup, maybe a tad more than a half a cup. I'm gonna put them in this bowl and we're gonna mash these up. Get my nifty potato masher here. It's gonna work on beans. We don't want mush. We want to leave a few chunks. I want about an equal amount of mashed potatoes, and that was it's a little over half a cup, but it's about a half a cup. And we're gonna mix these up pretty thoroughly. Get it all mixed together. When you have that together, I have here 2 or 3 tablespoons full of finely chopped onions. They really do need to be finely chopped. Once again, get it all incorporated in. I have here about 2 tablespoons full of well-drained, chopped up salsa. This is my homemade salsa, and it has some spices and herbs already in it. Got cilantro, has some peppers, has some garlic, and that's going to add a little Fiesta touch to it. These fritters are going to be a lot like refried beans. I'm going to give them a taste. Shouldn't need much salt because the beans and the potatoes were already salted. I'm going to add a little bit of my red pepper flakes. You know, I love red pepper flakes. And I will add just a little bit of salt. It's just a touch. You know, you see me add what looks like a lot of salt when I'm cooking, but you know, if you salt your food when you're cooking it, people won't salt it at the table, and you end up overall using much less. So once again, mix, mix, mix. And we'll add 1 beaten egg. This is a binder. Sort of just helps hold it together. Gives it a good texture. If you don't use the egg, you have to use a lot more flour or breadcrumbs or whatever you're using as a binder. I have 2 tablespoons full of flour here. I'm gonna mix that in. I may actually need more. These are leftovers, and so the texture is gonna vary, your beans or your potatoes. So I'll start with this, and if I need more, I'll add it. Okay, so that's the 2nd tablespoonful, and I can tell I'm gonna need more, because what we want is a consistency, so that this mixture will sort of stand up on the fork, because we're going to form it into patties, so it can't be too juicy. I think this is still just a little too loose. I'm going to add just a little more flour. Yeah, it's too loose. And we'll see if this does it. I think it will. You'll just have to judge this as you go along. But you know, if you don't get it thick enough, it'll just come apart in the frying pan. But I think this has got it. And these are panko crumbs. You know, I use them a lot. And if you've never tried them, you really ought to try them at least once. They're much crunchier than regular breadcrumbs. But if you have regular breadcrumbs, you can use that now. The texture of these, I mean, you can feel the difference. So I'm stirring a couple of tablespoons full of panko crumbs into the mixture. And that's going to add a little extra crunch. And they are so crunchy. So we're going to form our fritters. I'm going to take a heaping tablespoonful, and this will make about 12 of this size, and drop it down into the panko crumbs. If you want to make, say, an appetizer, and you want to make them smaller, use a small sorbet scoop, something like that, you could make these finger food, and you could probably get 24 or so out. So we're just going to roll it around in the panko crumbs and form it into not quite a ball, but you want it to be fairly thick to hold up to the frying. And I just don't know any way to do this except with my hands. And you just roll it around, and it'll really pick up a lot of the breadcrumbs, the panko crumbs. And make a nice little ball. Pat it down. Get creative. So I have enough batter for a dozen, but I'm going to stop here at 8. And we're going to fry these up. I'll meet you at the stove. So you see I dropped a little crumb in here to test the temperature of the oil, and it's sizzling really nicely. So my oil is right. This is medium-high heat. Of course, in a cast iron skillet. I'm going to take the little crumb out, and then we'll put these in. I'm going to do them 4 at a time because I don't want to crowd them. And I drop them in off the spatula to make sure they hold together well. I think they're going to hold together just fine. And you know the rules of frying. Medium hot oil. Put your food in, leave it alone. So we're just going to let this form a crust on the bottom, and then we'll be back. So these only have to cook on the one side about 2 minutes. Remember, most of our ingredients were already cooked. We've got to get it good and hot so the egg is done. And other than that, they don't have to cook much. So here's a little trick about flipping. Use your spatula and a fork, and you won't splash. It'll just slide right down. So that looks like we're getting a good golden crust there. We're going to come back in about 2 or 3 more minutes. So they've had about 3 minutes on the other side. Let's flip them over just to make sure. They look good to me. They're crispy, they're brown. Let's take them up. Now I have a rack over a paper towel that I drain these on. And I do that with most fried food. That way it's not draining onto a greasy paper towel. This helps them stay a little bit crisper. And I'm going to go ahead and finish frying these up. And I'll just show you this paper towel rack that I have. And then I'll be back. This is some mighty good looking leftovers. I want you to hear this crunch. Yep, these turned out pretty well. And I've never made them before, so I had no idea how they were going to turn out. Try a little with the sour cream this time. And they really are good. So, you know, I just hate leftovers, and anytime I can find something creative to do with leftovers, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to stand here right now and just eat my dinner while I talk to you. Thank you for joining us. I hope you try these. I'm really pleased with how these turned out. And I hope to see you again tomorrow on Debbie's Back Porch. Have a good evening.